This is your home for St. Cloud State hockey, keeping you up to date on the NCHC.
One-timer coming, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
Women's WCHA.
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
The National Hockey League.
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill, the thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner!
And everything from the state of hockey.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.
Welcome to the Huskies Warming House Podcast Den. And welcome into episode number 82 here on the Huskies Warming House Podcast. I'm Noah Grant, joined alongside my co-host Nate Maxon here on kind of a dark and drizzly weekend and a dark and drizzly Sunday morning, but definitely I think it was much happier in St. Cloud State hockey land, at least on the men's side. Split well earned against the Mankato Mavericks. We're going to touch on that. A little bit of women's hockey there in Wisconsin this weekend. Our final thoughts as the Minnesota roster included a player from the AHL that we had expected, but not expected in terms of who the actual player was. We'll touch on that a little bit more. And then we'll get into what really makes a championship hockey team kind of click at the collegiate hockey level and have a nice discussion in our extra ice session. We won't keep you waiting. And we'll start with the Center Ice View news and notes and the Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup. Center Ice View news and notes. Center Ice View provides you with the best coverage of St. Cloud State Huskies hockey from game notes, recaps, photos, and more. Go to centericeview.com.
As we mentioned, the men's team came in with that very hard-earned split against Mankato this weekend. But holy cow, 5 goals only scored between these two clubs all weekend. Huskies unfortunately did drop Friday's contest, a 1-0 shutout from Dryden McKay, who actually tied Ryan Miller's all-time record for collegiate shutouts. But then on Saturday, Huskies tried to turn things around a little bit. A much better performance. Got 3 goals against McKay, only allowing 1. It was a late one with the extra attacker. So 3-1, the Huskies do win on Saturday to earn that split. Noah Walker and V.D. Vietten scored. Mason Solquist got his first collegiate goal also on Saturday night. He was an absolute bulldog that game. He was very, very impressive. Aiden Spellacy, Joe Mulder, Nick Pervix, and Walker also tallied assists in the game. 3-1 on the season now for the men's squad. And it doesn't get any easier here, Noah. They'll head back to St. Cloud before heading to Mariucci Arena on Friday to go against the Gophers, who had a nice earned sweep against Mercyhurst before coming back to the Herbert National Hockey Center Saturday to face the Gophers again on homecoming. So it doesn't get only ramps up from here, and a rivalry again coming soon here for the Cardinal and Black.
Yeah, the Gophers really had a little bit tougher time getting away from Mercyhurst than I think that they had expected. Should be a good test. I think the scouting report on that is the things that they do really well. They do really well, but the things that they have struggled at early on in the season for Minnesota, they do need some tweaking. So I think if St. Cloud plays the right way, they have a chance at a sweep next week. And I really do believe that simply because Minnesota lost that extra weekend that they were supposed to be playing Fairbanks because of the COVID delay. So yeah, if you're St. Cloud, especially when it comes to the pairwise, it's a game that you really you have a chance to sweep, I think, in general, even if the Gophers play those extra 2 games. But in addition to that, I think you might catch a team that isn't firing on all cylinders. And I think the Huskies would be happy to hear that the Gophers aren't firing on all cylinders at any point at any time. So it should be a good one. And the home and home WCHA rivalry makes a return now. And of course, in the NCHC and Big Ten. So excited for that one and excited to see how that one ends up. Moving over to some women's news, a Saturday-Sunday matchup for them this weekend in Wisconsin, like I had mentioned, the WCHA powerhouse, of course. So they played last night. They're going to play again today at 2 p.m. In Madison. Last night, not the result that the Huskies were looking for, dropping game one by a score of 6-0. But it really wasn't as wide open as one would anticipate. It was actually 1-0 until about 5 minutes into period number 3. Then it became about 3-0 at the 10-minute mark. And then the kind of a flurry of goals at the end, including a goal in the last 17 seconds of play, sealed the deal there. Emma Paluzny kept her team in it, 41 stops on 44 shots. And then sophomore Sonia Hola, tough outing for her, only snagging 2 of 5 that came her way. So 3 goals allowed for each goaltender. So the Huskies, they dropped to 3-1 on the season, but 2-1 officially in official play, because their first win against Bemidji was an exhibition game, so it doesn't actually count as far as the record is concerned. So like I mentioned, 2 p.m. today on Sunday, the women's team looking to get back in action. And I think if you can hold a good team like Wisconsin to 1-0, starting 5 minutes into the third period, I think you put yourself in a good spot to win on any given night.
Very true, Noah. And that's kind of been the storyline with this Huskies squad historically with Wisconsin. You'll see these types of matchups where they really hang into it, and then Wisconsin gets that one break, and then the floodgates seem to open. And Unfortunately for the Huskies, that's what we saw last night. We'll have a chance to try to redeem themselves this afternoon, as you mentioned, a Saturday-Sunday matchup. But overall, again, the score doesn't really indicate exactly what happened between those two clubs yesterday. Let's go to some NHL news here, Noah. A couple of big stories. First of all, and this is big, especially north of the border in Canada, Ontario, the province up there, again, Toronto, Ottawa, a couple of big cities to mention there. They're going to be, at least as what we know, set to allow full capacity at all sporting events. So that's huge. As we all know, and following Canada, they've been very, very strict on, especially people movements on masking mandates. They've been really trying to get folks vaccinated. That means 100% seating capacity with proof of vaccination. So that's where they're sticking. It doesn't mention anything about a masking requirement. It is proof of vaccination, and that is it. So again, as we mentioned, the Ottawa Senators and Toronto Maple Leafs, the ones that would benefit from the full arenas. We haven't heard any specifics from some of the other provinces, at least as of yet, but this would be the first one to get to 100% pre-COVID. So this is good news. Speaking of vaccinations here, Noah, not that Evander Kane has had enough trouble on his hands, but the NHL now investigating what could possibly be a fake vaccination card presented by Evander Kane. It hasn't really, been very specific about, what's going on as far as punishments are concerned, if this is indeed to be vetted, and if they do find out indeed this was a fake card. But league rules do state that if a team and players don't comply with protocols, sanctions can include forfeiture of games, fines, reimbursements of fines, expenses, and the loss of draft picks. For Evander Kane, especially if he's going into Canada with certain provinces, if he is not properly vaccinated, he's actually not even allowed to go across the border per NHL protocol, and he would actually forfeit his daily salary in doing so. So this is interesting. And for Evander Kane, the storyline keeps getting bigger, right, Noah? The gambling thing that first the NHL took a look at, now his own team is investigating. They didn't, obviously thinking, well, yeah, the league did it, but I'm still not convinced, right? So the Sharks doing some internal investigating, what could be rumors of betting on his own games, his own club, and then now with a possible fake vaccination card. Things not looking good here for the forward. He's under contract with the team through 2024, 2025. And so far, as we've seen through the preseason as well as training camp, team has announced that he would participate in any of those activities while his investigation is underway. It'll be curious, at least for me, to see if he does somehow make a return for the regular season when things have to sort of be black and white. I'm kind of curious to see what happens with Evander Kane at the Sharks as we get we're about 5 days away from the opening night here for the NHL. Yeah,
well, good thing the Sharks also haven't had a rough go of it lately, just in terms of the way that their play has gone in the past season and a half. It kind of interesting how that transition always happens. The San Jose Sharks, Ottawa Senators, kind of the same deal where you work so hard to get to that pinnacle, the Stanley Cup final, and then or close to the final, I should say, in Ottawa's case. And then it just hasn't been the best of times for some of these NHL teams, and having player drama on top of that really does not help, or city drama in the case of Ottawa. But nonetheless, speaking of Ottawa and a couple of other cities in transactional news, all three players on professional tryouts that we had mentioned a couple weeks ago, Alex Galchenyuk with Arizona, Tyler Ennis with Ottawa, and James Neal with St. Louis, they all earned one-year deals with their respective clubs. So I think that this was a year that you had kind of mentioned as well, Nick, that we might see a little bit more of that just because of the cap constraints and guys that, maybe were a question mark coming into the lineup. Were they justified in getting that money, and could we make cap space if we found a player that, maybe could fill that role a little bit better? In Florida, the big news, the big signing this week, the huge extension for dynamic forward and captain Alexander Barkov, carrying an average annual value, $10 million per year over 8 seasons with $70 million in signing bonuses. Of course, this contract will kick in next season. For those who don't know, in addition to his amazing shootout prowess and great offensive skill, Barkov also won the Selke Trophy as the NHL's top defensive forward, usually an award that's kind of had Patrice Bergeron's name labeled on it from Boston for quite a long time. Barkov spending all 8 years with the Panthers in his career. Kind of wild to think that he was the second overall pick in 2013, and he's been in the league for 8 years. It really doesn't feel like it's gone that long. So best of luck to him. That Florida Panthers team, I think, has a good chance to make a really good run this year. Speaking of a team that might be going the other direction, we'll have to see. Montreal, they nabbed Jake Evans on his extension for 3 years, $1.7 million annually. And Arizona, going back to them, they announced that Phil Kessel essentially is trade bait in the final year of his deal. He's 34 years old, and he's not really in the club's future plans, which I don't think that's all that surprising, but it's always interesting when a club kind of essentially says, yeah, we're trying to move you
out loud, right? No, I mean, it's interesting that we haven't played a game yet, right? I mean, it's one of those where I don't think the expectations to Arizona are high this year. I think, but again, sometimes, hockey's a funny sport sometimes, and maybe Arizona goes on a run and all of a sudden, they're buyers. But realistically speaking, Arizona with some of the things that they're dealing with, we talk about off the ice issues. Arizona is no stranger to that, especially with trying to find a new home. They got those negotiations and that offer to Tempe and that redevelopment program. Certainly still have to find a home after this season from not Scottsdale, from Glendale. And so it would be fitting to see Phil Kessel's name out there. I know that he's a guy that you can almost slot into almost any team as a deep playoff run for a nice cheap acquisition. I think Arizona would be willing to retain salary too, just to give him a chance to maybe go on another cup run. So not surprising, but it is still strange to hear the team blatantly say out front before a regular season game is played that they would be willing to trade him throughout the season.
The statement was kind of funny too, because the way they framed it is the quote almost expressly said, Phil has earned himself another NHL contract. And it's like, but not with you guys? Like, okay. All right. Nonetheless, two-time Stanley Cup champion, likes his hot dogs and cheeseburgers, so to speak, but can still skate with the best of them nonetheless. Moving over to our second to last topic here in injury news, Ottawa's Colin White. Tough news for the Ottawa Senators. 4 to 6 months he's going to be out with shoulder surgery to repair that dislocated shoulder. Los Angeles' Quinton Byfield, second overall pick a couple of years ago. He's got a fractured ankle, and he's a guy that I think Los Angeles was hoping to kind of really bring into the fold and get him up to speed and see if he can make the jump, but unfortunately going to have to wait a little bit longer. Another one in coaching news here, the Predators, Nashville assistant coach Todd Richards, former head coach of the Minnesota Wild. He's recovering from a heart attack that he sustained last week at 55 years old. He's resting and doing well from what we have seen in the reports. And speaking of hearts, Edmonton Oiler forward Josh Archibald was diagnosed with a heart condition after contracting COVID-19, one that we've seen quite a bit here, myocarditis, and he's out indefinitely due to that ailment. So a couple of difficult heart-related and cardiac-related issues around the National Hockey League. Speaking of a player that was very relaxed throughout his career, lastly, our final story, it's one of retirement. Veteran netminder Curtis Mcelhaney. He's hanging up the pads, 13 seasons in the National Hockey League, so good for him. 197 starts, a .907 save percentage, and a .283 goals against average, pretty much known as a journeyman backup goaltender, a guy that you could slot in at any point, and if he needed, he could carry some games if a starter was hurt, but also, be a goaltender that could carry that 70-30 split on the 30 side and get, about 20, 25 games in a season. Calgary, Anaheim, Ottawa, Arizona, Columbus, Toronto, Carolina, and lastly, the Tampa Bay Lightning filled out Mcelhaney's career, and it ended pretty well, concluding his career with back-to-back Stanley Cups in Tampa Bay. Once again, welcome into episode number 82 here on the Huskies Warming House podcast. I'm Noah Grant, joined alongside by my co-host Nick Maxon. Nick, we're early here, just past 8:30 here on this Sunday morning. You've got a nod here. It's been a busy weekend for both of us. I think that's putting it lightly here, but happy to be here. I'm happy to have the listeners here. And I know that you've kind of ramped up not only with what you've been doing, but you've also got some extra podcast duties on top of that too. So I'm a little jealous of that, but proud of you too. How have things been going this week? And did you enjoy your trip down to Mankato?
They've been good. Mankato, that's a great barn, number one. Very rowdy and loud fan base. That was, it's interesting because for number one versus number two this early, how fun is that? Honestly, it's one of those where this is really starting to feel kind of like times of old again, back where the WCHA, where we had these powerhouse teams here in the great state of Minnesota / Wisconsin. And I'm not going to mention that state that's northwest of us. I don't want to do it, but maybe throw in some Michigan teams as well. But again, top five. The Gophers, Duluth, Michigan, St. Cloud, and Mankato. How fun. And then, it's going to be another top five matchup again this upcoming weekend with the Gophers and St. Cloud. I don't think there's going to be much movement as far as the numbers are concerned, just maybe some shuffling around the top five. But at the end of it, holy cow, just unbelievable atmosphere down there. Great rink. The one complaint I'll have is that ice was looking a little choppy by the end of the second game. Yeah, you could definitely tell with some players, they were fighting the puck a little bit. So it definitely wasn't the smoothest ice surface, but those teams, they battled. That was a great battle Saturday. Great game. Had a chance to catch up in person with Alex Mcelhaney. We kind of had our thoughts about how this game would go, and I think both of us thought that St. Cloud would go and have a response game, and they absolutely did, and they needed it before heading again back home to prepare for the Gophers. So with that, the Soda Pod duties, doing a little bit of that coming up. There's again, game prep this week, interviews for the Gophers coming to town. Again, it's a home and home series, the I-94 battle. So it's been busy. And again, homework, other stuff on top of that, and work.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you wake up in the morning, you're like, how the hell do I do all this stuff? It's just,
yeah.
And how does my body not just like collapse sometimes? It's a lot, but it's a lot of fun.
It was one of those mornings that at least I felt when I woke up that I was like, yeah, I feel like molasses, and that's probably an understatement to put it lightly. Definitely
right.
with the work piece here, I'm excited to have the weekend off from hockey in terms of commentating next week. I think it's a breath of fresh air, and especially when the Gophers are coming to town, excited to see that piece as well. A couple things to mention. First of all, like you mentioned, the ice a little tough on Saturday, players struggling to handle the puck. I don't need tough ice to struggle to handle the puck. I just do it naturally, but nonetheless, yeah, excited to see fans in the building and have that 1-2 matchup. And, this might become the new thing potentially. And I know we've talked about this quite a bit, but, you had the old WCHA rivalries, you mentioned it kind of felt like the days of old. This might be potentially the new schedule for a lot of these teams around the Midwest and who is in the old WCHA. We might start to see that where the beginning of the season is a 7 or 8 game stretch where we essentially have an old school abbreviated fake old WCHA schedule, so to speak, and kind of see the best teams in college hockey kind of match up in that respect, which I think would be kind of cool. And maybe that was what hopefully we were hoping to get back to all along, was that maybe bridged opportunity to play these, have all these teams play again as well and get back to those rivalries. I think the only thing that would be a negative of that is you have so many other teams that are trying to grow their programs when they play a team like Minnesota or something like that. Mercyhurst gave Minnesota a very good showing this weekend. The one that was a shocker as we were going through the scoreboards around the college hockey world, was Bentley, a 2-1 upset over Ohio State on Friday night. Ohio, of course, came back and throttled them 7-1 last night. But, what a great win for that program, taking out a Big Ten opponent too. So you never know what can happen in college hockey. The Huskies learned that, what would it be now, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, however you would put it, essentially, where it was Northeastern, who had a pretty decent team, and then it was Princeton that came in, and it was a loss and a tie for the Huskies, and a really difficult result, and a split with Northeastern as well. So you can definitely learn your lesson playing some teams that are supposed to be quote unquote lesser in the pairwise, that can come back to bite you if you don't bring your game the right way, and not to mention playing any team that the Huskies have to start the season. Not playing the right way is going to definitely get you in a world of hurt. So my question to you, before we get to our trivia, we'll hit some men's hockey, some women's hockey here, and then some other tidbits related to the Minnesota Wild and the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center. Nick, there's been a lot of talk, of course, coming up to the weekend about the 1-2, should St. Cloud have been number one? I don't think so. I think Mankato definitely earned that number one spot. It was a split. It was a tightly contested split. I guess in my opinion, I think that they stay exactly pat. I think Mankato stays number one. I think St. Cloud stays number two. Do you see those two flip-flopping at all?
No, in fact, I see both of them sliding down and Michigan going one.
Okay.
Honestly. Michigan, first of all, they were so good, they broke the water main inside Yost Arena. So that was that was something. But that team is freaking good. Now, granted, the offense maybe wasn't as flashy or spectacular this weekend, but that's what you get when you get two top teams. I mean, you're going to have defensively sound teams like, and they're two well-coached teams, right? I think, and if you look at two of the Huskies goals yesterday, Noah Walker's came off a skate. The first goal that goes in, and then the third goal from BT in the power play also goes off of a skate. And then, not much McKay could do about those two. Salquist was a nice rebound opportunity when he followed up the nice toe drag from Joe Molinar there in the slot, if those who are watching that game. So, honestly, I don't know how you can flip the teams, but I do see Michigan actually climbing to number one. That's to be the only really change that I have. Now, I don't necessarily say I agree with that. I just try to. I guess
I guess in my head, I can see them at three. I feel like that's too big of a jump for who they played. They had Lake Superior this weekend, which they look good. Don't get me wrong, 7 goals. But I think the team that I know they lost both, but in terms of their play, I think really was a good matchup. Duluth looked good, but how good did Bemidji look, playing them tight in both of those hockey games, just not getting the result that they wanted. It's great to see these Minnesota teams, kind of, get back to that point and climb back into the standings. But yeah, I don't know. I think we need to see Michigan play a top 5 or top 10 team to really kind of solidify and kind of hit that point. Similar to the Huskies, I think playing St. Thomas. I know St. Thomas is probably even lower on the rung in terms of that they're still searching for their first Division I win in program history. But, I don't know if Michigan gets all the way up there yet. Go Huskies Woo might be smiling at hearing me say that.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But Michigan has already gotten a lot of love from the pollsters. So I actually agree with you on all those fronts. I wouldn't be surprised if the poll came out and Michigan was slotted at number one, just because I feel like there's a lot of enamoration with especially the talent on that club. And I think, not that you make the great point. Oh, they haven't really played a big time opponent just yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're just given the number one ranking because it's just the personnel they have and not necessarily the performance.
And you know what? Huskies teams have seen this in years past. They can have it. I mean, really,
honestly,
like you mentioned, it's something for the team to keep working towards. Speaking of Michigan teams, how about Michigan Tech this year? I think they're going to have a lot better squad than people had anticipated there. And I believe it's the 101st year of program history. Is that right? Because I thought they had their 100th anniversary last year. So I've actually been up to Houghton during my collegiate playing days a couple of years. They've got, of course, Michigan Tech up there and then Finlandia in Division III. So a beautiful area, a very hilly area up in the UP in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. So it's a beautiful area to check out, especially at this time of year, fall. It's really pretty. And then they've got the ski hills going on there. And hey, their hockey team's not bad this year too. That's what I'm trying to say as well too.
Also, former WCHA team.
Yeah, fair.
Michigan Tech. Yeah,
fair. Speaking of NCHC teams, Western Michigan was in a dogfight with Ferris State this weekend. They pulled out the 4-3 victory yesterday as well. So college hockey is ramping up, and I think, with the regularity, so to speak, of the schedule and the pairwise coming back, I think you're starting to see teams, when they were under a bit of more stress than usual last year, start to really relax and play their game, but that stress has made them stronger as a program. So now I think college hockey is really starting to ramp up and it's going to be a dogfight throughout the NCAA, not just the NCHC, but the Big Ten, all over college hockey. And I think we're in for a pretty fun and wild ride here, especially if the Minnesota teams continue to perform as well as they have. Let's flip into our trivia question before we talk about that Mankato here series, Nick. Start of season 3 for us, St. Cloud State men's hockey. The question did read, they looked to avoid the weekend sweep yesterday versus Mankato. They were 28-19-7 all time against Mankato entering the game last night, now 29-19-7. They've only been swept by the Mavs twice during a weekend series at Mankato. What year and month was the latest sweep? It was the first win of the season for season number 3 from Tanner Heath. 10 seconds after he said he wasn't going to participate this season, he said it was a softball. So, Nick, do you happen to know either year? There's 2 years that the Huskies have been swept in Mankato. Can you name either of those years?
97?
Nope. I'll give you one more.
2005.
You're very close. Okay. Both games were the Huskies have only been swept 3 times total against Mankato. Twice were in Mankato, a pair of overtime losses in February of 2006. And then October of 2016 was the last time that the Huskies were not able to best Mankato in Mankato. And then I think it was 2008 is the only time that the Huskies have been swept at the Herbrooks National Hockey Center against Mankato. And honestly, if these 2 teams match up again, obviously, it'll be a single game setting, but if they would have played another weekend series, I don't think we would have seen a sweep at any point this season, just the way these two teams have kind of matched up. Nick, it was kind of a tale of 2 games, I would say, this weekend. As you look at of course, the stat sheets here, St. Cloud was very dominant on Friday night in the faceoffs, but really sloppy in terms, I think, of their overall play. Shots were 28-20 in favor of Minnesota State in that contest. And then you flip it over to the opposing night. It was actually 22-16, a very low shooting game in favor of the Mavericks in shots last night. But the faceoff dots really favored Mankato 34-24. In the faceoff dot. Aiden Spellacy going 0 for 5 in the faceoff dot last night. But it was the result the Huskies wanted. Hockey's a funny game. You and I had talked in the pregame show about how when I was calling the Minot Minotauros last night, they entered the third period with a 2-1 lead, out shooting their opponent 37-9, and ended up losing the game 6-3, giving up 5 goals in the third period. I mean, the hockey's a funny game. Let's start with Friday night. The Ryan Miller tying shutout by Dryden McKay. 1, were we surprised? And 2, what did you see from the Huskies?
Was I surprised? No. A couple of things that Mankato does so well. You can almost have to compare the forecheck to North Dakota's right now. Very active D, very aggressive defenseman. They were sailing both walls. So the breakouts for St. Cloud were just not there up the wall. I mean, that traditional breakout pass from your defenseman to your winger just was being contested all night. There were plenty of times where they were caught in their defensive zone, and the Huskies really didn't adjust very much. And so it was kind of frustrating. They were bottled up in their own zone. David Rennick was very, very good this weekend. There's one silver lining of both these games, Noah, is that David Rennick, he came up big quite a bit for this club. He looked very calm, collected, and not like he was overplaying anything. So he definitely rose to the occasion on both games, and I actually was really happy with his performance. And then, as you mentioned, on the offensive side for the Huskies on Friday, just a lot of just bounces not going their way. They were fighting the puck a little bit, especially the offensive zone. Again, Mankato likes to press their 2 wingers up towards their D. Couldn't really find that open space in between those 2 forwards and the 3 that are back. So there's plenty of space in the middle of the ice. But, unless you're moving your feet. And I feel like sometimes our defensemen, they're a little bit too flat-footed on the blue line. You got to be able to catch some of those back passes. You already got to have a stride to try to walk that blue line and try to move people, to try to open up some lanes. And they were a little bit too stationary. But credit Mankato, they got everything to the outside. There wasn't really any grade A scoring chances. And more so, St. Cloud had 0 offense off the rush in Friday night's game. The script was quite literally flipped on Saturday. A couple times in the first period where the Huskies were pinned down 60 seconds or 75 seconds per se, but most of the offense for St. Cloud, the 2 goals out of the 3 were off the rush. Again, Noah Walker blowing by a defenseman and then just taking a quick shot and gets a bounce. Spellisy, sorry, not Spellisy, but Salquist following up on a Joe Molinar toe drag. That was kind of off of a broken rush play. And then again, VT going, far side, almost looking at that back door off of a skate, puts one through the legs of a defenseman. That was a great feed. So much better in terms of possession, creating better scoring chances. And more so, once they got that 2-goal lead, you could really see, especially through the middle of the ice, a lot better breakouts in the second and third period. They really locked it down defensively. And it wasn't until Dryden McKay was on the bench that they got that 1 goal. That was quite the flurry after Julian Napravnik hit crossbar, far post came out, goal horn goes up. Everybody being thought it was in. I was actually sitting next to the video coach for St. Cloud. I mean, both in, and we're like, that's not in. And then unfortunately the scrum continues. I think some players for both teams are a little confused on what's going on. It ended up going in behind Rennick to kind of take away his shutout bid, but very, very good game response for Brett Larson's squad in Saturday's game. So that's how these matchups work, right? No, when you have 2 of the top teams, it's kind of a seesaw. It's back and forth. Again, much better flow second and third period after a very physical and kind of a chippy first period. But again, St. Cloud, they're a team that, at least, under Brett Larson's era, when they get that lead, especially, 2 or 3 goals, it's going to be a very uphill battle to try to climb back. And it was very, very, very good defensively for them last night.
Yeah, you mentioned for the Mavericks, Julian Napravnik, and I know that Alex Mcelhaney mentioned the same thing. He's a good hockey player. I thought he was a little bit underrated this weekend. And then, of course, Nathan Smith, the only goal scorer on Friday night. There's a guy that, Alex says all the time he could play in the National Hockey League, and I think he makes a case every weekend that he plays. A very good hockey player. And it was kind of an interesting piece too. I know that you had mentioned to me off the air Saturday about kind of, the face-off discrepancy as well too. And that even goes back into the officiating piece. Only 2 power plays on each side for Mankato and St. Cloud on that Friday night. Of course, Mankato scoring the lone power play goal that they needed to win that hockey game. But then flip the script on Saturday, 4 power plays on either side for each group. So, exactly even in terms of power play opportunities, but it was the Huskies earning their power play goal on Saturday and then going 0 for 4 with 6 shots in their 4 power plays combined were the Mankato Mavericks. So I think it's important too to see in a game or a set of games like this where they are tightly contested, that special teams can be the difference maker. And knowing that the Huskies were able to kind of stand pat throughout most of that, I think is important, because as we talk about the emotional ebb and flow, where if you have a 1-0 game, a 2-0 game, a 2-1 game, that sort of thing. Of course, it was never 2-1 this weekend, but you can see where that one change in momentum can, even if they don't, whatever team has the power play doesn't score, can really swing the momentum back their direction, being able to draw a call, especially if you're Mankato on home ice. So all in all, I think a split on the road against what was this weekend the number 1 team in the country and will be a top 5 team potentially all year. That's the result that you were looking for. I think St. Thomas, it was a great warm-up. It was a great tune-up. It was a great entrance for St. Thomas into Division I to get them into the fold. This was the real test for St. Cloud State, and I think that's obvious to most people. But this was the test that they needed to, I think, at least get a split to say, yes, we can hang with one of the best teams in the country. We can hang with one of the best goaltenders in the country, and we can do it pound for pound and control a hockey game like they did last night. So all in all, excited to see, 1, how they carry that into this weekend, and 2, it's very rare that you, me, and our co-host are all correct on exactly what's going to happen during the weekend, but we all predicted a split, and I think we were not disappointed on that one at all. But I like that the Huskies actually get that Saturday win. I think it's a little bit more confidence building, carrying that into Minnesota instead of coming off of a loss to end the weekend. So it was a good response, exactly how I expected Mankato to come out Friday and exactly how I expected the Huskies to come out Saturday. And it's great to see them get that split and a well-earned and hard-fought victory. Nick, let's flip over quick here. We're at about the 34-minute mark. So there's a couple of pieces that I would like to get to here quickly. First, let's touch on very quickly the women's hockey side here. They're up in Wisconsin, a 6-0 loss last night, like you mentioned, a little closer than the score indicated, but relying a little bit on Emma Paluzny for the first time this season, heavily like they have in seasons past. What does women's hockey and the women's hockey team, I should say, have to do to try to rebound against one of the best teams in the country on the road?
So this is going to sound weird, but honestly,
that's what we do here, Nick.
Yeah, right. It's frustrating to a degree because I almost feel like with Wisconsin, especially, we've talked about how they played them tough. Mm-hmm. I almost feel like this is not an adjustment that's on the ice. I feel like it's an adjustment between the ears. I really do. And that's no disrespect to anybody on that squad, but it's almost like this team doesn't really believe that they can hang with Wisconsin. And if they're that close, they feel like they've got a chance. And then all of a sudden they get down by 2. And it's almost like, crap, there's no way we can get back from 2. It just has that feeling, Noah.
Right.
And we've seen that in this matchup in the past.
Especially quick point, especially if you don't score too, if you're not trading goals. Yeah,
correct. So it's one of those where, if the Huskies can score first, and I think, was it 2 years ago when I think Brooke Kaderka had that hat trick I was calling, I know that game ended, it was an overtime win for Wisconsin. And actually, excuse me, I'm going 2 different games here.
Yeah. So the Brooke Kaderka hat trick was
Lindenwood. Yeah. I was thinking, was it either 0-0 or 1-1 for the Huskies, or I forget. It was a tie game. Are you thinking of the difficult turnover by Laura Kluge behind her net with about a minute? That's exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I'm going to say this. I know you're old, Nick. Happy birthday yesterday, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
But I give Nick the benefit of the doubt. When you do as many hockey games as this guy has, they start to run together.
They start to run together. Yeah. but to that point, right? First of all, they know Wisconsin can be that lethal, right? But what that means is sometimes you don't play with your mind, you don't relax. Sometimes you're almost too afraid to make a mistake, and you kind of grip the stick a little bit too tight, right, Noah? And I kind of feel like for this Husky squad, if they can just relax a little bit and just be confident, right? You just have to sometimes play with confidence. And maybe if you're a player and you're like, even if you say yourself, as a real human being, we're not as good as Wisconsin, but sometimes you got to fake it till you make it, right? Sometimes you almost got to inject a little bit of that confidence that maybe, I'm not sure if it's unearned, but
kind of throw it back the other direction, because Wisconsin comes in there knowing they're the better team. They know they're the powerhouse group. It's like, you kind of almost fight fire with fire. You try to throw the game back in their face, and really, you got to worry about your own game, because I think it's easy to go into a game and think, oh man, we're playing Wisconsin, the big bad bear of the WCHA, right? And instead of that, you got to think
hockey.
Yeah, exactly. You got to think about what is our forecheck doing? What can I do to be effective tonight? What can our line do to be effective tonight? And this women's hockey group, when they do that, I think they're very effective. And they're a team that is difficult to be reckoned with here. Nick, before we get to our quick thoughts here, before we head to our extra ice session on the Minnesota Wild finalizing their roster yesterday, one thing that was not a mistake and was very well done by the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center that you're potentially working on here, that's Mac Mosco getting his own seat inside the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center. Nick, can you kind of fill us in on the details there?
Yeah, so I'll be doing something on that. We're not quite sure if it's going to air on Saturday for homecoming, but essentially the seat that he always sat in, which is on the press box side of the arena, they've put basically a patch on the seat, reserving it for him, and a very classy move by the organization. And it's excuse me. What's this is one of those situations where we've definitely covered the story, Noah, for those who followed our podcast, and we you know it's still technically still ongoing, although there hasn't been anything really newly developed lately. But
yeah, the only thing that we had seen, just to kind of interject quickly here, because that's what I do, is that the only thing they said that Mac was not under the influence of alcohol that night. That was the only new update that I had seen. But anyway, continue.
Sure. Excuse me, you caught me off guard, so I had to get a little drink here. So
I scared you. Hey, it is Halloween. It's
I know. I know. I mean, have you seen my skeletons in the back there? My goodness.
Yeah. So say hi to Caleb for me back there.
Okay. But no, trying to really touch on, what Mac meant to that hockey team, that organization. Obviously, if there's one thing I've been really impressed with Brett Larson, just as a human being, right, is, hockey's a game. It's a great game, but it is just a game. And there's so much more to life than the game of hockey. And if there's any one coach that epitomizes that, it's Brett Larson. This organization does a lot of the right things off the ice. They know it's a community, and the hockey community itself it's one of those, it's almost like you want to have a 30 for 30 on, honestly, just to try to explain it to people. But fitting tribute. I know the Gophers also put a patch on their helmets as well, in tribute to Mac. I think I'm going to look at this a little bit closely, but I think the patch is designed the same. Both teams that are wearing, and just, the color iterations are a little bit different. I'm working on that, but yeah, it's going to be on UTVS News. For those who don't know, that's the St. Cloud television station, probably Thursday. But we're trying to see if we can't get more of a full length feature for possibly airing during a homecoming game on Foxland Plus. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of pieces that fall into place, and, probably some conversations that may have to happen that aren't always comfortable. But I think
the timing is
right.
I don't want to say eerie, but it is, it is what it is.
Right. And, for folks, who question, well, why would you do this kind of thing? It's, again, the focus of the story is not on the tragedy. The focus is on is celebrating the life of Mac. That's where the angle of the story is. And it's a kid who, spent a lot of his younger years growing up, just, I'm sure Noah, I know myself can think of, different places we spent a lot of our childhood. For me, it was my grandparents' house in Bloomington, because I had an outdoor pool. So there's so many memories there. The Herbucks National Hockey Center was that for Mac. And so it's fitting that he has his seat blocked off, for the season at least. That's what we're going to kind of be showing the fans as to what the game meant to him, and, what he meant to the Huskies hockey squad.
Yeah, it'll be a very good weekend of hockey this weekend. I think it'll be a very emotional weekend, especially I think for Bob and his family as well too. Obviously in the building, but off the ice too, that, there are things that are bigger than hockey, and this certainly would qualify in that category. So wishing the best of luck to everybody. Like we mentioned, should be some good hockey this weekend, and hopefully some good honoration throughout the season of the Motzko family and all the great things that they've done and continue to do throughout the St. Cloud community. Speaking of things closer to where Bob Motzko is now, around the St. Paul, Minneapolis area, very quickly here, Nick, the Minnesota Wild finalizing their roster yesterday on Saturday, I believe. They're getting down finally to their 23 player roster with an extra injured reserve player. That's going to be Matt Boldy. He's out 4 to 6 weeks with a fractured ankle. A lot of people feared it was going to be a lot worse than it was. Kaprizov, Eriksson, Zuccarello, they're going to make the squad, of course. Fiala, Marcus Foligno, Nico Sturm, Jordan Greenway, Nick Bukestad, Frederick Goudreau, Ryan Hartman. And then you've got Rem Pitlick that's going to round out that group up top. And then a player that we're going to get to on the forward group that surprised a lot of people. I'll mention him last. On the defensive side, Alex Goligoski, Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin, Matt Dumba, Dmitry Kulikov, John Merrill, and the extra defenseman, likely Jordy Ben. And then in net, Cam Talbot, and then Capo Kakin and Andrew Hammond right now is currently an emergency goaltender on the squad until they finalize things officially before the season opener in Anaheim on the 15th. The team is headed up to Duluth for a little bit of team building. And who else is going to join them? It's going to be Brandon Duheim, who's going to be the player that at 25 years old is going to get his NHL crack instead of what we had anticipated might be Adam Beckman. Of course, the Matt Boldy piece does change things a little bit, I think, in this respect. But Nick, Thoughts on the Minnesota Wild roster and thoughts on Brandon Duheim?
It is what it is, right? So Duheim, I think, surprised a lot of folks. I think as we got through training camp, there, a couple of things. One, I thought, early on, we were kind of thinking Boldy would make this roster and Marco Rossi would push for one just because there's such a need at center.
Yeah.
Now he's in Iowa. So, and I think, there was a lot of tea leaves that were trending from what even Bill Guerin was saying, how they were using Rossi, that I think really they're being just extra careful with Marco Rossi. And to me, he looked okay, some of the action, but I did kind of see that as far as game speed, as far as, I guess NHL game speed, he did look, slightly behind. So I'm not that worried about him. I think he'll adjust. He's a kid that likes to work. So, I'm not worried about Marco Rossi. Matt Boldy's injury is, yikes, that's tough. But Duheim, I think he fills the role that they were looking for, honestly. And it's tough to say for a hockey player, especially from a fan's perspective, because, Adam Beckman, holy cow, did he play really, really good hockey. However, for Adam Beckman, he's a player that can really only utilize those talents if he's in the top six role, right? There wasn't a top six role available. So Duheim, almost just by measure of being a fit on what was an open spot, is able to grab that final rostered spot. So, you have to give Duheim credit. He did earn that spot. They could have fit a number of other players there, but for the time being, that's his spot. He fills that fourth line role that Evason and this team last year had a really good fourth line, and was Eriksson, Foligno, and Greenway.
Yeah.
That was, I think, very, very effective as a shutdown line. I know they were trying to recreate that now in Eriksson now as the top line center between Kaprizov and Zuccarello. So,
and it's looked good in that spot too.
Very, very looked good. So at the end of it, we'll have to see. Again, that's a new season. As you mentioned, Friday, traveling to the great state of California to open up their NHL season and kind of see how it goes from here.
Yeah, well, let's also not forget Rem Pitlick is listed as the center on this roster. So there's a piece that might change things as well, too. Kevin Fiala, I think it's going to be no secret. He'll probably be on that second line there. I think, maybe you could put Marcus Foligno there. I see maybe even like Ryan Hartman sliding up with Kevin Fiala. I'd like to see that, maybe a little bit more speed-based group there. Then, in the middle, I have Victor Rask penciled in. Do you put Rem Pitlick in the top six? Is he a guy that, potentially goes there? If he doesn't, I think you put him on the fourth line on that, right-hand side, but then you've got Brandon Duheim who's in the press box. So, I think, Victor Rask could still end up being the odd man out here. We'll have to see. But I think adding Pitlick, you don't add a guy like that just to put him in the press box per se, but not to say that he can't be. I think you pencil in maybe Nico Sturm or Freddie Gaudreau as the third line center. I think Nico Sturm actually gets the call there. I have him with Marcus Foligno and Jordan Greenway right now. I think that would be a pretty effective line. And Nick Bukestad between Gaudreau and then maybe Pitlick potentially there. Duheim could slot in that position too. Again, really, it's going to be a question, as it always is. What do the Wild do with the centers? I think the defensive core is pretty much all but solidified. And Jordy Bannon, I think, is going to be the odd man out here to start the season at least. Nick, very quickly, who's going to be that second line center?
Oh boy, I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I still think Victor Rask. I
still have him there. So,
it just shows again that this organization just has this glaring hole down the middle. And I think a big reason why a lot of pundits aren't really sold on the Wild in terms of being a true cup contender. And I agree with that 100%. You have some dynamic players in Fiala, Kaprizov. You've got a pretty decent back end. Jordy Ben looked had a couple really tough games. And that signing by Bill Guerin late, I know it's depth and if anything, but I just can't see Jordy Ben in a game anytime soon. He just did not look good, in that system with the Minnesota Wild. But I think Victor Rask stays where he is, and maybe that's again we talk about Rem Pitlick, possibly being that center/wing, and could he challenge that spot? Yeah, if there's any good news is that bottom six has a lot of interchangeable parts, so you can. And you want that flexibility in your roster, which is good. The problem with that also too, sometimes too much flexibility tells you that you don't have that bona fide player that you're looking for in key positions. And for the Minnesota Wild, again, as you mentioned down the middle, there's a lot of pieces missing there. And so, you're going to have to probably mix and match here the first couple of weeks, see what works. And but I think with right now Victor Rask, who spent a good majority of that time last year. He's got the most familiarity with some of those players. I think right now he's the best option.
Yeah, and you hope that, one of those centermen, can kind of fill in that role or maybe kind of exceed expectations in the middle. But nonetheless, the Minnesota Wild, it'll be interesting to see how they finish in the Central against a division now that they're back in their division. And I think that they have a chance. They've got their star forward locked up. Now we'll have to see how they can run with it. That will do it for the main portion of our show. We're going to head over to our extra ice session with a Go Huskies Woo inspired topic, so to speak, talking about rebuilding a championship team. And welcome into the Extra Ice session. Nick Maxon is alongside myself. I'm Noah Grant. We're happy to have you here in the Extra Ice session here on the Huskies Warming House podcast. As we had mentioned just moments ago, a Go Huskies Woo inspired segment. And this is talking a little bit about, at least in the college hockey world, that question mark of, returning players, veteran experience, so to speak, St. Cloud State, what they bring. Mankato, I think, would fit this bill too, returning a lot of players versus an up and coming team that we talked about in the open a little bit, like Michigan, a team that, didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament because of COVID last year, is a young team, but a loaded team. Nick, I kind of want to start it off with this and give listeners a kind of thought about how this discussion kind of had talked about. And really in simple terms, it was a discussion where Go Huskies Woo, and rightfully so, and excitedly so, very excited about this St. Cloud State hockey team, as you and I are, Nick, I think as well. But I was a little more cautiously optimistic, I think, to put it this way. And granted, this was a couple of weeks ago before the season had started, so we hadn't actually seen the team play yet as well, too. But I've been a part of a fair number of teams and seen a fair number of teams that do return the same core that went deep in the playoffs at one point, and they struggle the next season or just can't find a way to get things regenerated. Nick, is it right or is it appropriate to kind of be a little more hesitant, at least to start the season, even with a team as good as the Huskies? And number two, what does it take for this Huskies team to find and recapture that energy? Because as Brett Larson said a couple of weeks ago to us so eloquently, you don't just start with the same team when you're not at the same level that you were in April of last year.
Well, let's reframe the question a little bit. And the reason why I want to reframe it is I think it's important to understand how sports work, honestly. So for the fan base, I get the fan's perspective. The fan perspective says you look at a roster that got you all the way to the national championship game. You lose two pieces, which, albeit my perspective, and I know you agree with me, is very important pieces, although, they weren't offensively juggernauts. I will tell you one thing, they were defensive and face-off juggernauts. And puck possession is huge in the game of hockey today at any level. But really the framing of the question is, how do you recreate success, right? It's not just the roster. That's not what happens, right?
Yep. So
let's start from the basic argument is, let's get one thing straight. Last year is last year. That's done. I asked Brett about this a couple of weeks ago in preparation for St. Thomas, and he described it just as this. It's from scratch again. Yeah, we've got a lot of the same returning players, but this is a new season. This is a brand new ball game. And you don't just pick up right where you left off. That's just not how this works. You've had months of rest. You've had off-season workouts, but you haven't really been playing hockey at all, right? So at the end of it, it is a brand new season. You have to look at it as a blank slate. Now, for those fans who want to put the Huskies in the Frozen Four championship game now, you're dumb. You're absolutely dumb. I'm sorry. I'm going that far, Noah, because here's what's frustrating to me as a former athlete, former player of this great game, you as well. You have to earn every single victory. Number one. Number two, in the game of hockey, sometimes crazy bounces happen. Sometimes you have to get a little bit of luck too, right? Ask North Dakota and Blake Wheeler about trying to dive to save an icing that ends up in the back of the net, right?
Yeah.
That's not a skill play. That was, I'm just trying to swat the puck to avoid an icing call. It ends up miraculously going in the back of the net. Like, hockey's crazy like that. Last night, for those who are football fans, Texas and A&M unranked takes down number 1 Alabama, right? Nothing like nothing in sports is guaranteed. Everything is brand new. So just because you went to the national championship game last year, a few months ago, it means nothing right now. The fact that you're returning 18 of your 20 guys, I hate to say it, it means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It means absolutely nothing. Now, could we make the argument that, yeah, you got a lot of great players, you have a great roster? Yeah, there's something to that.
They're and that's what I had mentioned. They're 100% capable. We 125% believe in this group.
And that's where the argument is actually people combine when it's actually two separate arguments.
Right.
Just because the roster is the same and just because they're capable, that doesn't guarantee a damn thing.
Yep.
It just doesn't. You have to earn every single weekend. Again, St. Thomas, you blow the doors off them at home. It should have been 13-2. It's 12-2 at the end of the day. You go down to St. Paul. It's a 2-0 game. It's a much different atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many St. Cloud Huskies in Washington were biting biting their fingernails or whatnot because they were that nervous.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So it's like, wait a second. If you really break it down, every game is new. There's nothing that says there's a path forward to that. Are Huskies fans used to this? Let's go back to 18-19.
I was going to say, not that tournament time and one and dones have ever created anything like this for Huskies fans.
Let's go back to Air Force. Let's go back to AIC, when I think offensively wise, I think those teams are a little bit more gifted than the ones that we have, to be fair with you. And you go in and you drop 2 eggs in the first round because you think you're the better team and you think it's going to be a cakewalk. No. So anything can happen. And that's the beauty of this game. And also, it's the live by the sword, die by the sword, right, Noah? So I think what fans have to understand is, yes, this team has absolutely every opportunity. They're this good to get back to the Frozen Four. However, let's make sure that you understand that it is a journey. It's a process. You don't read the introduction of a book, skip everything in the middle, and go to the conclusion and understand what happened in between, right? That's not how this works. So you have to go this chapter by chapter. Every game is a chapter in the story. And for the team, that's how they're looking at every game as a chapter. You prep for it, you write it, and when it's done, you close it and you look at the next blank chapter because you have to write that one too. So every day is a new opportunity. Everything is brand fresh, but you have to earn it every single night that you're on the ice. There's nothing that's handed to this team. We've talked about this coaching staff, Noah, and how good they've been in terms of building the mental toughness of the squad. I think that's been the most impressive jump between different coaching regimes. But no, to say that we're cautiously optimistic is not a knock on the team's skill. It's not a knock on what the team's capable of. It's us knowing, as again, former athletes, that, hey, you got to earn it to get back there. And there's how many games left to get there?
Yeah,
it's a ton. It's a long season.
It's a long season. Here's the deal. Okay. The Huskies are 3-1 right now, right? They had a fantastic weekend, I think, overall against one of the best teams in the country in Mankato, right? Huskies could finish 3-5 by the time the NCHC season starts. They could drop both games against Minnesota. They could drop both games against Wisconsin, and they could play very well in them, and that could still happen. They could play like absolute dog shit, pardon my French, and come away with 4 wins in the next 2 weeks. They could win all 4 games in the next 2 weeks and finish 5th in the NCHC. Okay, there is a lot of pieces that go into this. One of the things that I would like to point out, I guess, from my playing career is, so when we were trying to qualify for the state tournament, the week before we had played Mandan, we beat them 11-1. Okay. So the way the West Region tournament works, you pretty much have to win either the first game or the second game. So if you win the first game, you put yourself in the championship round, then you've got to win one more game to get to the state tournament. If you lose the first game, you've got to win to stay alive. And then you've got to win game 3 to go to the state tournament. So the winner, if you win game 1, lose game 2, you get the team on the other side that lost game 1 and won game 2, essentially. So it's meant to set up where a higher team that won their first night potentially gets a lower seed that's trying to stay alive to go to a state tournament. Well, anyway, we were that higher seed that won game 1, lost game 2, and we got Mandan in game number 3 thinking, we just walked all over them 11-1 the week before. Like, this will be just fine. Well, we ended up losing 5-4 off of an unreal goaltending performance from the 7th seed in an 8 seed conference to go to a state tournament where we should have, our leading goal scorer had 92 points in 22 games. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, hockey is a funny game. The Minot Minotauros last night calling the game against North Iowa, number 1 in the Central. The Minotauros out shooting the opposing team, the Bulls, 37-9 with a 2-1 lead entering period number 3, lose the game 6-3, gave up 5 goals in the third period. Hockey is a weird game. And even if you have your best night, you might still get a result that's different from what you're looking for. One of the things that you and I talked about pre-show was Mason Salquist getting his first as a Husky, ended up being the game winner. And you talked about how you said, he's really impressed me. He's starting to win me over. And I said, I've been impressed with him too, but it's also nice when you come in as a freshman, there's no expectation for what you need to do. Right. So you can almost, in a sense, you can almost exceed expectations a little bit if you start to really elevate your game a little earlier than normal. The discussion where this actually all started with Go Huskies Will, and I love Go Huskies Will. We have a great time. I'm really excited to, be a part of what has going on there. But it was the discussion of how you and I had kind of disagreed with him, where we thought that Michigan was as good, if not better, than the St. Cloud State hockey team. They're a young team, but they've got 3 of the top 10 draft picks in the NHL, including the top draft pick, 2 in the top 3. Okay. They're a very good team. They're young, but they don't have the experience that the Huskies have. And the argument was the experience of the Huskies will carry them through. That might be all well and true. But Nick, do you want this Michigan team in the first round of the NCAA tournament? Do you want to face that team?
Well, let's put it this way. So you talk about expectations, right, Noah? I think it's appropriate to go through that. You can't just look at it right now. We have to look at this at a proper scope, right? Michigan, and let's set the table a little bit differently, because I think you're missing an important point. The reason why Michigan is that good is because their talent is unbelievable, right? So experience often trumps talent, oftentimes, right? But sometimes talent can carry you through certain plays, certain matchups, certain plays in hockey. Sometimes talent, it can trump experience as well. But this Michigan squad is incredibly skilled. So the projection is Michigan, although young, is going to grow, and eventually that experience is going to slightly kind of creep up to what their talent level is, right? That's the expectation. Going back to your point with freshmen, just real quick, the expectation is, and the only expectation is, you just got to get better every game, right? That's really what it is. It's not that there's none, but you have to grow every game. And I think Mason Salquist has done a fantastic job of that so far. And that kid is a bulldog. I mentioned it on Twitter last night. He is not afraid of anybody. And I love that attitude he has with that kid. He's fun to watch. Going back to that argument though, Noah, if that projection does take place, I do not want to face Michigan in the first round. Now, however, here's where the rightful hockey player fan will come back to you and say, well, what's the difference between first round and championship game? At some point, if you're the best team, you have to find a way to beat them. So here's a caveat, right, Noah? Although Michigan is incredibly talented, they're also very top heavy. One of the things that I think the Huskies can be better at than Michigan is their depth. That's the one thing that could carry the Huskies past the Wolverines in a said matchup down the road. Oftentimes in those tight games, experience does tend to be favored over than skill. However, sometimes, like you had mentioned, hockey's a funny game. Let's say that the talent is bright and early for Michigan in that contest. They pot a couple of really amazing highlight reel goals, and that experience is great because you're not taking yourself or shooting yourself in the foot mentally to get yourself out of the game.
Exactly. And that's where I was trying to get to was that.
But that's the thing. But however, sometimes a lack of high-end talent can't get you to claw back too. So it really is a tale of both teams. But honestly, Michigan is that good. And again, what people have to remember is it's not, when we say that Michigan is good, doesn't mean that Huskies are bad. That's not how this works. This is not, a math form that says just because A is B, B is C. That's not how this works.
There are two independent variables.
Correct. It just means that, hey, I do think that Michigan and St. Cloud are on equal levels. The polls would agree with us, unfortunately. And at the end of the day, again, just like St. Cloud will have to prove itself come playoff time, so will they. Every team has to go through it. Do you think UND wants to replay a 5 overtime game against Duluth? Do you really think Duluth was the better, more talented team?
And that's the other piece that I want to throw out here too. And so the Huskies, they've had the pain, of course, of remembering what the first round has been for St. Cloud State hockey for a long time. They have that memory. Now they have a memory of what what it felt like to get to the national championship game. I'll throw this out here, and I don't like throwing this out here a lot because, I don't want to really talk about myself, but in college, we won back-to-back national championships. Okay. In Michigan's case, a young team that has yet, at least with their group in program history, they've done well, but at least with this current group has yet to punch their ticket to the NCAAs and go deep into the playoffs, right? It was much easier winning the first national championship and even in overtime than it was to win the second one, because the first one, you have no expectation or realm for what the experience is going to be like. Every time you win a game, you're so in the moment as to what's going on. Then when you come back the next year and you try to repeat the same process, you have the thought, oh, well, when we were against CC, we might have been down 1-0. We were out shooting them this. Now we're down 1-0 and we're getting outshot by 20. You start to have these, I don't want to say you second guess yourself. And again, that's where that mental toughness comes in, but you remember what it felt like the year before. And it's important for you to not let that experience sometimes override what you expect versus a team like Michigan. Yeah, they might be young, but if they punch their ticket to the Frozen Four this year, this group doesn't have a feeling of what that felt like, similar to the Huskies last year. They kind of, this Huskies team is not the most skilled group that we have seen in program history, but they rode the wave and rode the success of their group. Now getting back there, this team's very capable of doing it. But as you mentioned, there's a lot on the mental side that goes with it too, that people don't think about. That, I remember when I was warming up for my last ever collegiate game, when we won our second championship, and it was, in my head, I was like, man, this didn't feel like the warm up, that I had last year. And you have to find a way to put that out of your head. And granted, that's why they're Division I hockey players, that, that sort of thing. But
so what you're saying is, Noah, that again, what happened the year past doesn't freaking matter.
Shocker.
Yeah, shocker. Right? But to your point, that is why it can be so tough for teams to go back and repeat, and why it's such an impressive feat, right? And that is, first of all, there's always that chip on your shoulder. There's no question St. Cloud have got chips who were there last year, that they were that close. They were in the final game of the year. And
look at Mankato the weekend before and the first game against the Huskies. You think they had a chip on their shoulder?
Oh, yeah. So, and at the end of it, you have to put that to bed, because you can't, like I said, those emotions and that feeling of wanting to get back there, if that's what's in the front of your head as you're playing hockey, that's not going to lead you to success. You have to be in the moment. You have to be focused on the task at hand, shift by shift. You just have to have that short-term memory. We talk about that in sports all the time. A short-term memory in sports is both when you lose and when you win. It has to be both ways, right? Because again, what happened the first 20 minutes of the period, you may be down 5-0, but guess what? Well, we just mentioned that, right? Yeah. You never know what can happen. You have to put that to bed. You can start off with a good shift. You can win a period. You can win a shift, and all of a sudden get pucks going. You can turn around a game. Now, granted, 5-0, probably a little bit more tough than usual.
Yeah.
But again, it can happen, right? So at the end of it, this Husky squad is good. They are going to make a legitimate push to get back to, and this year will be in Boston for the national championship game. But again, you can't have your mind already on vacation in Boston. You have to look at it now as, hey, my next task is, hey, we have to go into Mariucci Arena and we have to play a pretty decent Gopher squad that is going to know us pretty well. They play a very similar style. They've got some pretty equal talent level. That's what they have to focus on. That's the next task at hand. If you take it one step at a time, you're going to be all right. You're going to find more success than not. So, honestly, yeah, that's essentially, to answer your question, that's how you build a championship. You build it throughout the season. You have to keep getting better, but focus on one game at a time. That's what it takes. Everybody gets a little bit better every single week. The coaching staff there to grow and mend the players as they see fit, and making sure they're putting players in the right spots to be successful, keeping players healthy. Again, still unsure about the Sam Hedges injury. I was going to update that you earlier. Still trying to work to see exactly what his ailment is. Although the last I heard was that it's not a long-term injury, although we don't know exactly what it is. So that's just it. That's how a championship team does. It's a brick by brick. It's a foundation. You don't just slap a whole bunch of dirt down and say, here's my house. You build it brick by brick. And, if you do it the right way and have a solid foundation, you build upwards to that. That's what yields success, not just talent, not just smarts. It's got to be a full picture effort throughout the entirety of the season.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, this team in particular lost a lot of people, and the team I'm about to mention, I should say, 2019-20 Denver, right? 21-9-6 last year. They were a team that I thought they played okay, but just never was able to get over the hump. College hockey is a weird game. They were 10-13-1 to finish their season, then had an otherworldly performance against Omaha. And then they played really well against North Dakota until they lost in overtime. Actually, probably could have won that game until North Dakota clawed their way back. College hockey it's such a question mark. You can be the best team in the country. You can get all the way back there and not get the bounce that you're looking for.
How about this? Let's put it into football perspective, right? Just real quick. The Vikings are a missed field goal, a fumble, and a dropped pass from being undefeated.
Yeah.
Quite literally. They're 1-3.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Joseph doesn't miss wide right. He was just channeling his inner Blair Walsh. I get it. But he misses that field goal, and that's a winnable game.
Yeah.
First game of the season, they were in overtime driving on Cincinnati, had the ball in field goal territory. You're trying to run the clock down. Dalvin Cook fumbles the ball. That should have been a game-winning drive with a field goal in overtime to win that game. And then against Cleveland, a couple of, a drop pass, especially which I think got them the first down to continue the drive into scoring territory. They easily could have been ahead in that game. So it's like, it's not uncommon for these things to happen. No, it just isn't. Mm-hmm. But again, it's how you overcome and how you look past those mistakes, right? I mean, can you imagine as a hockey player or any professional athlete going back to the bench after you make a mistake? Like I know Jack Peart had some growing pains this weekend, but watching him, there's a lot of things he does really well. He's still very, very patient with the puck in the defensive zone, makes a lot of good reads. If he were to go back and sit there and kick the boards on the bench and just, let the emotions and sulk, that's not how he gets better. He definitely did improve this weekend. And again, as long as you had that trajectory of getting better every little bit of every game, good things are going to happen for the squad.
Yeah, and that's the ultimate piece, is saying just because this is almost the same team, and like you mentioned, I think Will Hammer and why can't I think of his name right now? Jared Cockrell. I think those were two huge losses on the defensive front, because you could put Will Hammer against any top line in the country, right? And Jared Cockrell, I think, was a great shutdown winger that was able to produce a little bit too. That's not a knock on this year's team, and not saying that they're not capable of it. But other than that, it might almost be the same team, but it's a fresh slate. And of course, the Huskies have gotten off to a 3-1 start. You got to be excited about that one. But, it's funny, for so long that Huskies fans have been cautiously pessimistic, so to speak. And now that you make one national title game, now it's, we've got the same team. Now we're back. Now we're here. We've seen how that story ends. We're number one in the country. Look how well we're doing. Well, AIC has entered the chat. Okay. So
has Air Force.
Yeah, exactly. So that's hockey. To kind of finalize the point, like we said, we believe in this team. The pieces are there. The pieces are more than there. Having a player like Kevin Fitzgerald come back for his fifth season, how great has Kevin been, in the first four games of his game? It's great to have a lot of these players back, because they have the skill set. They do have the experience, but at the same time, you've got to earn it every step of the way. So rebuilding a championship team is not just saying, we've got 18 of 20 guys back and they've got experience and they'll figure it out. David Rennick, I think, has been fantastic. Probably the best he's been in his Huskies career since probably March of last season. He could potentially struggle too. You never know what's going to happen in hockey. I think David's capable, but you just never know. So we're optimistic about this team, but we use the term cautiously just simply because we've seen the story play out before and know that it takes, whatever it is. How far away is April? What is that? 7 months, 8 months down the road? That's a long time to go through a mental and physical portion of a season and play whatever it's going to be, 36, 37 games potentially.
Let's wrap a bow on this, Noah. Just because I think, you can beat the dead horse all you want, but the point's still the same. But I think what's important to talk to, Huskies fans is, it's not, in life, it's the same way, right? So if I'm if I'm a person that hangs drywall and I just did an immaculate job, right? Just because I did that for my last customer and that sold my next customer my work, right? If I go in with this big chest puffed, I'm such good, and then I do a sloppy job because I just got a namesake to it. It's the same way in life too. Like you can't take anything for granted. It's a new job. It's a new opportunity to prove yourself, and you have to prove yourself every single weekend. So to finalize, right? Yes, you have the skill. Yes, you have the returning roster. You have the personnel capable of doing so. However, if any artist, if any, well-known, whether it's a painter or a music artist, right? Just because you've done great things in the past does not guarantee future success in anything. You have to go back to the drawing board. You have to embrace what makes you successful, but you also have to continue to look at what things you can improve on. And you have to continue to keep building, right? It's not something that's ever handed. You have to earn every single win, every single shift is earned in professional sports, in college sports, in life in general, right? You just can't sit back and be a spectator and sit on your laurels that, I made the national championship. Big deal. I hate to say it, but big deal. That means nothing right now. That season is done. That book is closed. So I think for Huskies fans, this is a great squad. They're going to do some great things. And just understand that it's a process, right? It's a process that gets you there.
I don't know that I've ever said this before, Nick, but when you're watching the game, relax. And, the other piece of this too, and we had a fun little discussion with Caleb about this, but we did have some fans that, the Huskies lose 1-0 on Friday night to Mankato, right? One of the best teams in the country at this particular point in time.
Well, they were number one at the time. So
yeah. And then, at this particular juncture of the season, I should say, is what I'm trying to say. But for some people, already the panic bells were kind of going off. The Huskies, I'm thinking, you just held one of the best teams in college hockey to one goal. I'm repeating that recipe all night long. You just got to find some offense, and they did the next night. So the tools are there. Trust the process. You're going to have highs. You're going to have lows. Think about the example I gave with Mandan. They got their doors blown off by us 11-1. And what did they do? They shoved it right back in our faces at the moment that it mattered most. I mean,
they didn't back down. Right. And that's what makes a championship team, is be able to look past that, to embrace. You have to embrace adversity is really what it is.
And you got to have a little bit of luck to think about. What is it? The second game to punch their ticket to the Frozen Four. The Huskies were being outplayed by BU. And all of a sudden they get a puck that's flipped into the air that ends up right on Micah Miller's stick. That totally changes the complexion of the hockey game.
So, at the end of it, again, that the process is what's fun too. That's what makes the whole journey fun. Trust me, there's nothing that I think neither I nor you nor any fan, especially the players and the coaches, want to do than get back to that spot. There's no question about that. At the end of it, again, it's never given, it's always earned. And at the end of it, trust the process, embrace the process, understand that it's not this perfect process either. And at the end of the day, we're confident in this Husky squad, but again, they got to show it to us every weekend. That's the thing. Is there's no expectation that they will go out and trounce every team. There's an expectation that they will battle, they will work hard, but understand that, as you mentioned, highs and lows, and that's the way the season goes.
Yeah, the results will take care of themselves, but the effort is something you can always control. Speaking of things that you can control, and speaking of the process, we've got a process here on the Huskies Warming House podcast, working on the finishing touches, hopefully getting our guests set. I think Tuesday night is going to be our recording for our guests as far as what I have talked about, but you'll have to stay tuned. In the middle of the week, potentially having our interview out. And then, of course, episode number 83, we're going to break down a great weekend for the Minnesota Golden Gophers and the St. Cloud State Huskies on the men's side. And then I'm trying to remember, Nick, if I can, and aid with technology, with the women's hockey team. I keep forgetting who they have after Wisconsin, because I know that I was getting to that point. Let's pull up the schedule here. They have, no, that's not the right schedule. I like it when I get the wrong schedule, Nick. We're almost there. We're going to get there. I promise you. Nick,
this is when you buy time, right?
Yeah.
And no, honestly, for the women's team, what's just for today, you hope that you go back and have another good effort against Wisconsin. The result may not be there, but you have to be able to look back at some of the positives. Again, it was a 1-goal game, midway point of the third, that you're hanging with them.
It's St. Thomas that they have a home.
But don't get discouraged, right? Yeah. So don't get discouraged. Just because you maybe go down 1, maybe 2, understand that, the game isn't over. What do you call it?
Until it's over.
Until it's over. So thank you.
Yeah. So St. Thomas, October 15th on Friday at 3:00. They're going to be in Mendota Heights, and then they're going to be at home on the 16th on Saturday at 1 p.m. So if you're getting ready to watch that Gopher series, especially on Saturday, and you're a Huskies fan, both teams away from home on Friday, and then Saturday, show up at the Herberts National Hockey Center around 1:00, watch some women's hockey, grab some food, stick around, and hang out for the men's game and catch some really good hockey that you're going to see for both squads. So with that being said, for Nick Maxon, I'm Noah Grant, and we will see you soon here in the Den.
One-timer coming, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it. He scores! Kirill the Thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.